Welcome to the Astrology Show with your host, Kelly Fox. Each week, Kelly will give you access to the current transits that are a valuable tool which provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has through our sun sign. Understanding the current planetary influences each week can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. Sometimes events in your life may seem completely random, but there is a pattern to the order of these events, one set in motion in part by you and in part by the planets and stars in the sky and their influence on your life here on Earth. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, if you're going to get that promotion, move to a new city, or fall in love, tune in to the Astrology Show for guidance. It can help you anticipate problems before they occur, give you tools to cope with changes, and help you look forward to the wonderful days ahead. Kelly Fox is a professional astrologer and internet pioneer who launched astrology.com, one of the first and most successful astrology websites. Today, her passion lies with her new site, theastrologer.com, where she brings a modern-day approach to an ancient wisdom. Please join Kelly each week to learn more about how the planets can align for you.
Hi there, and welcome to the Astrology Show. Have I got a show for you, jam-packed with goodness. We are now in the season of Gemini, all things Gemini. So this show is dedicated to all you twins out there. Gemini, the sign of the twins. And so the sun moved into Gemini on Saturday. And it will be in Gemini until June 20th. So there's going to be a lot of action going on, a lot of stuff, a lot of social activity, social whirlwind, when there's anything to do with Gemini. Gemini is a very busy sign. Geminis, if you are one or have one in your life, or have any planets in Gemini, you know all about multitasking. Multitasking, a jack of all trades, a jack or a Jill of all trades. When I think of Gemini, I think of that. Geminis are very flexible and versatile and dexterous and clever and witty, funny. Always the life of the party, always know where the best parties are. If you have a Gemini in your life, you know this is true. So our social lives for the next few weeks will get a really big boost while the sun is in Gemini. And many of us will be in the mood to connect, regardless if you're an introvert or not. And this will be a fun time to meet fascinating people who will open our minds in many different ways and seeing the world from a different perspective. If you are looking for a new job, this is a great time to network because Gemini is all about networking and get out there and connect when the sun is in Gemini. A lot of us, our mental energy will be high. We might be a little bit scattered with this Gemini influence, but we'll have an insatiable curiosity that will take us in all sorts of interesting directions when the sun is in Gemini. It's also a great time to take a class or a course, research on the internet, but nothing too deep. Gemini just likes to stay above the surface. Gemini likes to know a lot. No, wait, a little about a lot. Yeah, that's more like it. Not a lot about a little, but a little about a lot. That's really Gemini, the jack or Jill of all trades. It's also a great time to catch up on your reading. Again, nothing too in-depth or involved. I've got a stack of magazines I need to get through, and I've just prompted myself to do that. So when the sun is in Gemini, like it is now, we're in Gemini season, there's an urge to learn new things. But we do get bored with this influence too quickly. So we need variety, otherwise boredom will set in with all this Gemini influence. Also on Thursday, we have a new moon in Gemini. New moons are all about new beginnings and new starts, but of course you can never have a new beginning until you complete something first. So it's all good for starting new things, and particularly if you're looking to start two things or start something with a team of people, a new project with a group of people. That's a fantastic use of the new moon in Gemini energy on Thursday. So that's great. So you've got, we have a double, triple, quadruple boost of Gemini energy going on this week. So Gemini is symbolized by the twins. Gemini is the third sign of the zodiac. And when I think of the twins of Gemini, I think they're playful, they're mischievous. They're quite tricky, and I think of like sometimes a cart full of monkeys when I think of Gemini. They're very clever and witty and funny, and as I said, the life of the party. They're playful, can be a little bit devious sometimes, particularly for those of us who can't keep up with the sharp and fast mind of a Gemini. And Gemini has the energy of two people because its symbol is the twins, the two people, the twins. And also Gemini has all the diverse interests and urges that go with this symbol of the twins. Now, Gemini is a mutable air sign that's ruled by Mercury, which is a communication planet. And Mercury is all about communication and the intellect. And its mythology is messenger of the gods. So with Gemini, anybody who can stay up late with them discussing everything under the sun will be their best friend. They're definitely, they value and prioritize the intellect. Geminis are quick-witted and highly observant, and they don't miss very much. Typically have a good sense of humour and a definite need for freedom, and that's intellectual, romantic, and otherwise. So Geminis just want to connect with as many interesting people out there as possible. And as I said, they get bored very fast. So to be friends or more with a Gemini, there needs to be definitely an intellectual connection. They even intellectualize their feelings. They're not very sentimental. And if this doesn't ring true for a Gemini, you might know, or even yourself, that might be because what typically happens with the zodiac is if you're born under one sun sign, you might have a lot of the influences of the next sun sign or the sign before. So, for example, with Gemini, you might have a Gemini sun, but you might have Mercury and Venus and even the moon in Cancer, which gives a very emotional flavour to the typical characteristics of a Gemini. So that's where there's some confusion that comes in with astrology is it's definitely more than a sun sign, but a sun sign is a great place to start. So if this might not ring true, it might be because you have a lot of other influences going on in the sign before or after. So with Gemini, the sign before is Taurus. So Taurus is a very grounding, practical, sometimes slow-moving sign, whereas Gemini is very fast and quick and gets bored easily. So if what I'm saying doesn't ring quite right for you, it might be that reason, because there's more Taurus influences or Cancer influences. So Taurus is a very fixed, sometimes stubborn sign. Cancer, the sign after Gemini, is very emotional. So I'm just talking about the true flavor of Gemini. So each month when the sun changes sign, I dedicate the show to that particular sign, and I'm only talking about the true nature of the sign. So somewhere deep in there, if you are a Gemini but you have these other influences, somewhere, somehow, there is going to be some Gemini characteristic for you. So also with Gemini, they can be quite indecisive because they see all the options, and sometimes it is hard to make up your mind when you see all ways something could go. Other signs might mistake that for being too wishy-washy. But Geminis can change their minds with zero notice. But they make up for that in spades of excitement. Gemini, there's never a dull Gemini. I have never met a Gemini who I would call dull, that's for sure. And I'm also talking about people with Gemini moons, and you know who you are out there. So Gemini has a well-deserved reputation of the life of the party. And also they could be extra fun to have along on a road trip, maybe a visit to the bookstore or the theatre or really anywhere. Gemini just knows where it's all happening. Geminis make great writers, journalists, anything that takes information and can regurgitate it back out. That's definitely Gemini. Now, as I said, on Thursday, we have a new moon in Gemini, nearly 5 degrees Gemini. And so a new moon is all about new beginnings. So this is a great time if you're looking to start anything intellectual. This is the week to do it. We're going to take a short break. After the break, I will continue with Gemini, so stay tuned.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Hi, this is John Ondrasik of Five for Fighting, here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. You know, style is a personal thing, and your lifestyle is your business. But if you take it on the road, it becomes everybody's business. So please, plan ahead, designate before you celebrate. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
A public service announcement brought to you by RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I'm your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, talking about Gemini. The sun moved into Gemini, and we are in the season of Gemini. There's a new moon in Gemini. Gemini is an air sign. Air signs can be rather indecisive and can change their minds in a split second. Other influences of air signs, and the other ones being Libra and Aquarius, they're intellectual, and they tend to think miles ahead of other people. They're always thinking. Sometimes air signs might find it hard to sleep because their mind does not stop. As I said, they're very witty and clever and charming, and they make fun, unique dates. But they can lack a little bit of affection and sentimentality because they're so intellectual, air signs, and Gemini is no exception. They intellectualize their feelings because they're so quick-witted and they don't want to get bogged down in those feelings. Gemini is also a mutable sign. Mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, and they're very flexible. So they can change on a moment's notice. They're not stuck in the mud types of people, and they're just open-minded and dexterous and just adaptable, I guess, is the best term for a mutable sign, and that's what Gemini is. Now, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury, as I said earlier in the show. Mercury is the planet closest to the sun. Its mythology is messenger of the gods. And Mercury is definitely all about the intellect and how we communicate. And because Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, each time there's a Mercury retrograde, Gemini will be affected in varying degrees, of course, but typically that's the rule. So when your planetary ruler, regardless of what sign you are, turns retrograde, you will also be affected. Now, Gemini compatibility, I'm going to whiz through this, and I'm doing this in typical Gemini fashion. I'm not talking about anything too deep. I'm just scanning the surface of what Gemini wants to hear. So Gemini compatibility. Gemini and Aries love compatibility. This is a great match. Aries is quick-blooded and Gemini quick-minded, and both need constant action, and you're both willing to try anything once. So this is a great match, Aries and Gemini. Gemini and Taurus, you can make this work if you have other shared planets in your chart, but it might be tough to see what's keeping you together. There will be definite attraction in the beginning, but Gemini's exciting and flirty nature, I don't know, the bull likes to sort of take a slow and steady approach. Gemini and Gemini, oh my goodness, that's 2 times 2, right? Because Gemini is the sign of the twins. I'd have to say great minds think alike when 2 and 2 hook up. That actually means that there are 4 of you putting your heads together. So there's definitely multiple personalities at play when Gemini and Gemini get together. But there will never be a dull moment, that's for sure. Gemini and Cancer love compatibility. Again, if you have shared planets because your signs next to each other in the zodiac, so there's a good chance there that you will share Cancer, Gemini planets. But Cancer's a homebody and Gemini loves to get out and socialize. So it can work, it just depends. Gemini and Leo love compatibility. You two make a great match. Leo is one of the signs that really understands Gemini, besides another Gemini, of course. Leo gives Gemini the grounding that it might lack, and Gemini, of course, as usual, brings the thrill and excitement. Gemini and Virgo love compatibility. Well, you two are both ruled by Mercury, so that's the connection there. So it's all about the intellect. In different ways, Gemini is more obvious than Virgo when it comes to intellectual pursuits, but that is the connection. But take that ruling planet out of Mercury, and you two actually are at odds within the zodiac because you are 90 degrees apart in the sky, and anytime 2 sides are 90 degrees, that forms a square, which creates challenge and friction. Gemini and Libra love compatibility. Well, that's a great match because you're both air signs, and the golden rule of compatibility when it comes to astrology is if you're of the same element, then that is a great start to compatibility. So with Gemini and Libra, there's a lot of love and understanding between you. You get each other. You're both intellectually minded, so you're never at a loss for words, which is always a great place to start and a good foundation for any relationship. Communication. Next, we have Gemini and Scorpio love compatibility. Well, that's an interesting karmic connection between you. Gemini and Scorpio is very karmic. So you will sense an immediate and deep attraction to one another, but there's definitely going to be, I don't even know if the word challenges is the right one, but that's certainly a memorable connection. There's something you need to overcome together. Gemini and Sagittarius love compatibility. Opposites attract. Gemini and Sag are opposite in the zodiac. And together, how much fun will you both have? I can only imagine. You both have sunny, optimistic natures, and you won't be wasting time wallowing in boredom or depression. There's going to be a lot of fun and adventure with Gemini and Sagittarius, and anything goes. Now, Gemini and Capricorn, what you share is a sense of humor and resourcefulness. You're both resourceful. There's not a lot of common ground between you, but again, there's another karmic tie between you. So Gemini and Capricorn, you have things to learn from each other, and not always in a good way. How about that? Gemini and Aquarius, this is a great match. You're both air signs, and of course the rule is same element, great compatibility. You share sharp, original intellects. You both really need your freedom. You're not interested in routine typically. And you can both be called somewhat unemotional and detached. And finally, Gemini and Pisces. Well, you're both mutable signs, so that's a good start, where you're both flexible, not too fixed. But Gemini is a lot less emotional than Pisces. You can both be indecisive, impressionable, adaptable, flexible, changeable. So that's the similarities. But the differences certainly are emotional versus intellect on the Gemini side. So there you have the Gemini compatibility. So let's look at the influences that are going on at this time. So I really wanted to get to the Venus-Pluto square. Venus-Pluto square. That's pretty intense. The influence of that is Venus in Aries is forming a square to Pluto in Capricorn. So this is pretty, I'm trying to sugarcoat it, but there's really no way to sugarcoat this with Venus squaring Pluto. It's like a little invisible devil whispering in our ears, planting nagging doubts and secret suspicions around our relationships in particular, because it's Venus, the planet of love. We might find under this influence that we are scrutinizing our closest companions and wondering if they really are who they say they are. So we might find ourselves being really suspicious with this influence. Other keywords for when Venus forms a square to Pluto is compulsive, obsessive, maybe jealous. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If things come up, just blame it on this Venus in Aries forming a square to Pluto in Capricorn. But the good news is they're both cardinal signs, Aries and Capricorn, so it won't last. Better than being in fixed signs. So these feelings might go as quickly as they come, or come as quickly as they go. So that's the good news, at least. But this can be this is a great energy for transforming and try not to control and manipulate others with this influence. It's very intense as well. So just take a deep breath before accusing anybody of anything or thinking somebody said or done something that maybe they might not have done. Oh, also another thing with this influence of Venus, square Pluto, is be careful with finances. Venus is also the planet of money, and particularly with any sort of long-term investment. This is definitely not a week or a time to make long-term investments or major purchases under this influence. Oh, and just one last word on this. Try not to guilt trip or manipulate others. Also, what's going on? We've got Mercury forming a sextile to Neptune. So when Mercury sextiles Neptune, this is a nice influence around any sort of spiritual pursuit or creativity, but anything that needs any sort of mental discipline, it might be a little bit tricky. This influence is better for brainstorming and for using our intuition, and we'll be more drawn toward the unseen side of life. So it's sort of like look for a higher purpose. Look higher than just focusing on mundane details. It will be hard to keep our feet on the ground when Mercury forms this a sextile to Neptune. But our minds will be wandering, and that's okay if you have the time to do that. And if you're looking to work on any sort of project that requires creativity, brainstorming, anything that's artistic, that's a really great use of this energy. We're a lot more dreamy and suggestible and sensitive than usual. We're going to take a short break. After the break, I will continue with the influences of this time, so stay tuned.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Spiritual, metaphysical, green living, psychic, alternative healing, life coaching. Do any of these or similar terms apply to your business or cause? If so, you are in a niche market with a very specific audience. Conscious Gate PR is the world's leading conscious public relations agency. With a global reach of over 4 million and growing, we offer comprehensive media campaigns to our targeted market. Learn more at ConsciousGatesPR.com. Conscious marketing for conscious minds.
Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners and give a message from Spirit about the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, join Carrie each Monday at 3 p.m. on Vibe Nation Radio.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat?
Don't assume you know it all when it comes to car seats for your child. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat and know for sure. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I'm your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, talking all about Gemini. Gemini is the third sign of the zodiac. It is represented by the twins, and it is a mutable air sign, which means that it's definitely go with the flow. Now, as I said before, when I talk about each zodiac sign, it really is the true nature of the sign. If you are a Gemini or you know a Gemini and you're thinking, hang on, I'm not that flexible and easygoing, that might be because you've got more inner planets in Taurus or some other influences. So Gemini, if you do know of a Gemini in your life, they're typically the life of the party. They're intellectual, they're fun. They know a little about a lot. I had to think about that again before I said it. A little about a lot, a Jack or Jill of all trades, always full of fun facts is the Gemini. And just before the break, I was talking about the other planetary influences going on at this time. Now, we are in the season of Gemini, so the Sun is in Gemini until June 20th. So there's going to be lots of busy social activity for the next few weeks. Also, we have a new moon in Gemini on Thursday the 25th. So that means new beginnings around any sort of intellectual pursuit or project. And try not to work solo or be solo during the time of Gemini, because if you think of the symbol of Gemini, it's twins. That means two or more, multiple, typically. So it's not a time to be alone. It's a time to get out there and socialize and network, particularly if you're looking for a new job. It's a great time to connect with others. It's a time for connecting, for being intellectual, for starting new intellectual pursuits with a group of people or a team of people. I did say before the break, I talked about Venus forming a square to Pluto. There could be some relationship issues at this time. It really is just a fleeting influence that doesn't go on for weeks. But just keep in mind there that some sort of jealousies or suspicions, it's not a good time at the moment to make any sort of long-term financially investing. Also, we have Mars opposing Saturn. Let me see here. Mars is in Gemini, of course. We've got Sun, Moon, Mars in Gemini. Let me see, where's Mercury? Not yet Mercury, but we do have a lot of Gemini influence at this time, and not just the Sun. So we have Mars in Gemini forming an opposition to Saturn in Sagittarius. Now, again, luckily, Gemini and Sagittarius are mutable signs, so these influences are not long-lasting. They are, I want to say, fleeting. Mars opposite Saturn will be hanging around no more than 10 days, definitely around 7. So when Mars opposes Saturn, which means it's opposite Saturn in the zodiac, 180 degrees apart, confrontations and unpleasantness might be likely during this time. It's sort of like a David and Goliath, little guy versus the corporation, motorcycle versus a tractor trailer. It's sort of like the little guy taking on the big, heavy conglomerate. So, it's an impotent sort of energy, an enraged energy, bitter and cynical when Mars opposes Saturn. It's like we're getting pressed down, like the man is getting pressed down. So it doesn't happen. This transit only happens like once every 2 years, but it's very demanding. It's like there's a control or a controlled will, or we have to take responsible action. But during this transit, we must learn to overcome our fear with courage. That's the key word. Overcoming fear with courage. To control our anger and focus our desires. Focus is another key word. So to have controlled focus. But in the short term, try and avoid any sort of arguments, being defensive. If someone disagrees with us, agree to disagree. Find better ways to resolve our disputes. And being resentful is not helpful with this influence of Mars opposing Saturn either. So that doesn't go too well with the Venus forming a square to Pluto. So really take care around not just personal romantic relationships, but just any sort of connections with others. Again, these are really short-term influences, but they can be really intense while they're here. These are not light influences, Venus square Pluto and then Mars opposing Saturn. Anytime I think of Mars and Saturn together in a hard aspect, I think of it's like driving with the brakes on. There's a speed limit in our life at this time, and it's like if you go over the speed limit, you'll get a ticket, and so on. So it's sort of like stick within the rules. As much as you don't want to, it's best to grin and bear it, I guess, is another way of looking at it. So also another influence at this time we've got is Mars forming a sextile to Uranus. So that's good. So Mars is forming this opposition to Saturn, but it's also forming a sextile to Uranus. This is a great energy. So it's sort of like a contradiction. So Mars is the planet of action and assertion. And then with this opposition to Saturn, it's like we're being pushed down and we're told to toe the line. But on the other hand, it's forming this sextile, which is a great aspect. It's about opportunity with Uranus. And Uranus is high voltage and in a good way. So you've got on one side there's this repression, and then on the other side there's this unexpected burst of energy. So it's a bit contradictory, but that's how life is, I guess. So when Mars forms a sextile to Uranus, now, as I said, Mars is currently in Gemini, forming a sextile to Uranus in Aries. This is very refreshing. It's a very refreshing energy. We might get sudden insight that enables us to break out of a rut we've been in, or provide some solution to some problem that's been troubling us, which goes hand in hand with this Venus forming a square to Pluto. It's sort of like the Venus square Pluto is all about friction and tension when it comes to relationships, and then feeling pressed down or repressed with the Mars opposing Saturn. But then you have this Mars forming a sextile to Uranus, which is all about thinking outside the box. And, you know, voila, suddenly here's a solution to this problem that feels like it might never have been fixed, or it's going to go on. And then suddenly there's an innovative idea, and if we brainstorm a little bit, we might be able to save the day. And it's also, with this Mars sextile Uranus, it's a good time to interact with people we don't ordinarily hang out with. Now, this goes hand in hand with this Gemini influence that we're in until June 20th. Sun's in Gemini, Mars is in Gemini. We've got a new moon in Gemini, and it's all about networking with others. It's like it's connecting with others. It's the saying I'm thinking of with this influence. These influences are variety is the spice of life. You know, we can speak clearly. We're more articulate. We can say what's on our minds now. It doesn't matter how shocking it might seem. You know, it's okay to speak up at this time. That said, of course, there's always something with astrology. It's never, and that's life itself. Astrology reflects life. It's like nothing's ever perfect. There's always some little thing. You know, we have to live our lives within certain rules. Sometimes they might feel more stifling than usual, and that's what that Mars opposite Saturn aspect is about. But the Mars sextile Uranus at this time is more about breaking free of tradition, not being pushed down. Also with Mars sextile Uranus, being eccentric, this is a great energy for it. It's also an energy that's restless, impulsive, independent, and many of us will be looking for an adventure at this time. So that's come up quite a bit during the season that we're in of Gemini and all these planetary influences. It's action and adventure. Many of us might be feeling a little more daring than usual, which goes hand in hand with the nature of Gemini. During this time, we might be releasing our inner freedom fighter. But here's a note of caution, as always. Let's be very careful about what we're actually fighting for. Also at this time, we've got Mercury, planet of communication, which is Gemini's ruler, forming a trine to Pluto. That's good. That's great. That really helps us focus our thoughts. This is a really great influence. And so currently we have, let me see here in my calendar, Mercury is in Taurus, and it's forming a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. So we've got a lot of Earth influence around our intellectual pursuits. So what that means is that we're very focused and grounded and steady. We're not off flitting and flodding around. We're flitting and flapping and flodding around. We are very grounded and focused at this time with Mercury in Taurus forming a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. So this is a wonderful time to participate in any sort of public speaking engagements, giving any sort of presentation, teaching complex lessons. At this time, just with Mercury trine Pluto alone, without being in Earth signs, our minds will be very sharp. Organizational abilities completely flawless at this time. And our intelligence peaks under this transit of Mercury trine Pluto. Goes beautifully with all this Gemini influence. So this is really the season for any sort of mental capacities that we're looking for, any sort of intellectual pursuits. This is a fantastic time to pursue any sort of thing like that. So as I just said, public speaking, giving a presentation, or teaching any sort of complex type of subject. We're going to be able to speak with authority, inspiration, and conviction at this time. We could sway others easily to our point of view, so be careful about that. Many of us will have a way with words that we might not be able to articulate at other times. And on that note, we are going to take a short break, so stay tuned.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millicers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Welcome back to The Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, and welcome back to the Astrology Show. I'm your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, talking about the planets at this time, and we are in the season of Gemini. There's so much going on. It's definitely a time for intellectual pursuits. And just before the break, I was talking about Mercury forming a trine to Pluto. It's a fantastic time for research, any sort of mental discipline. It's sort of like we see what no one else might be able to see at this time. So really great for investigating and digging deep and getting your point across and being understood. Also at this time, we will have Venus trine Saturn, which is much better than Venus forming a square to Pluto, that is for sure. Now, anytime I see Venus trine Saturn, and I'm just looking up where is Venus in Aries forming a trine to Saturn in Sagittarius, anytime I see Venus trine Saturn, Venus and Saturn coming together in a positive, within a positive aspect, and that would be a trine, sextile, possibly a conjunction. I always think of long-term relationships. This would be a great time to get engaged or married. So relationships and finances are highlighted by this short transit of Venus trine Saturn. Many of us will be grounded and sensible when it comes to relationships and money and thinking long-term and helping others in need. Just doing practical things to help other people that you care about. So we make good listeners at this time, or good counsellors, and just making smart investments. Once we get over the initial Venus square Pluto, then a few days after we move on to it forming a nice aspect to Saturn. Also, we have Venus forming a conjunction to Uranus. Whoa, okay. So Venus in Aries conjunct Uranus in Aries. Oh, crazy. We've got some wild and crazy things that are going to happen with this influence when these two planets hook up. Liberation in love seems like a theme with this sort of influence. Many of us won't particularly care what others think at this time. We're in the mood for something different when Venus forms a conjunction to Uranus. And, the other thing with this influence is we might feel a strong attraction towards someone who wouldn't usually catch our eye. I'm putting that nicely. So read between the lines on that one. It's sort of like the weird and the wacky and the wild seems to be appealing when Venus conjuncts Uranus. Short-term sort of relationships with this influence, not always, but particularly, I'm saying that more so because both planets are in Aries, Venus and Uranus both in Aries. Really, that's sort of fleeting. So quick hookups. And relationships that begin under this influence are usually dramatic but short-lived, typically. But, as an alternative, try something new with your long-time partner. If you're in a relationship, keep the love alive by doing something wild and wonderful. How about that? Even wacky. Even socializing with friends, getting out and about. This is definitely, the theme, everything that I've just been talking about tonight, the theme is get out and about. Try something different. Also, is this the final influence? I'm just having a quick look. Yes, the final influence of this time period is Sun trine Jupiter. That's pretty great. So the Sun in Gemini forming a trine, which is good, to Jupiter in Libra. Definitely more socializing. This is an extremely favorable aspect associated with good fortune and many opportunities. There's going to be so many opportunities and things that are coming up for many of us that it might be hard to pick and choose between them. But what is important now is the broader vision and the higher principle. Try not to get bogged down with details when the Sun trines Jupiter. This is an extremely fortunate aspect. And really great for the long Memorial Weekend as well. We're feeling good. It's the official start of summer, not of course according to the natural calendar, but to the human-made calendar, it's the official start of summer, and we're all feeling really good about it. Many of us will be tolerant and generous, generosity of spirit peaking when the Sun forms a trine to Jupiter. There's not much really to be fearful of. It's a bit expansive, so take care with excess because Jupiter is involved. And just watch for extravagance, but really, Try not to overindulge with the food and drink during Memorial Weekend, but really it's a really great influence. So they're all the influences at this time. So, you know, there's a lot of good stuff going on. Basically, the key word here is get out there and schmooze and socialize. Now, for your weekly horoscope, if you're an Aries, don't get caught up in a struggle between competing egos. You don't need to prove yourself to your opponent, so just walk away. Clever communication skills, courtesy of a new moon, mean that you could still paint this as a win. And if you're in a standstill in your career, consider whether further education or new skills might help. It will pay to invest in yourself now, so that in years to come, you can seek fresh opportunities. If you're a Taurus, secrets and lies emerge when you least expect it. So if you have anything to hide, this could be a tense week. The new moon focuses on core values, so stay true to yourself. In your relationship, avoid the temptation to use sex as a weapon or bargaining chip. Find healthier ways to resolve your differences. If you're a Gemini, seemingly well-meaning advice from a friend may come with an ulterior motive attached. Keep your own counsel where possible. Use this week's energies to tackle any unspoken issues in your closest relationship. If you hide your head in the sand, you'll miss the chance to fix things with your sweetheart. If you're a Cancer, unethical dealings at work dominate your week and you're unsure what to do about it. Whistleblowing may be an option. What do you feel in your heart would be right? Boredom at work or in your career may prove truly frustrating. Turn this to your advantage and be spurred on to start looking elsewhere. You don't have to keep this job. Seek, find, or create opportunities to move on to something better. If you're a Leo, if you're separated from a lover by distance, this could be a testing week. Friends are a strong source of support, and tech should help you to keep in touch. Don't give up on your partnership. It's stronger than you think. And if you've been trying to create a side income from a hobby, you may be close to giving up and losing heart, but don't. You're almost there. Look at the issue from a different angle, and you'll find the creative burst you need to move forward. If you're a Virgo, it may be tempting to punish an old rival or to extract revenge in some way, but don't do it. That would be stooping to someone else's level. Focus on positive developments at work instead. Tensions at home may boil over, but in some ways this is a good thing. If everyone's patience is now exhausted, then you're ready to stop fighting and start finding solutions. Call a family meeting and work together to resolve this. If you're a Libra, tensions in your love life come to a head and there may be a difficult decision to be made. Talking things over can bring closeness and resolution no matter what the problem is. The giving or receiving of help raises tempers. Perhaps you've asked for help and not received it, or you've helped someone too much without thanks. Either way, it's time to be independent. Stand on your own 2 feet and move forward. If you're a Scorpio, spiteful comments about your image are cutting this week, and it's hard to not feel hurt. Use the communicative power of the new moon to talk over your feelings with a trusted ally. Being confident in your own skin takes practice. Also, financial frustrations are a blessing in disguise. The need to pay bills and create extra income will drive you to earn extra money in creative, positive ways. This could even lead to a new career. From every problem, an opportunity can arise. If you're a Sagittarius, passion and drama in your love life may be intoxicating and even slightly dangerous or obsessive. You're playing with fire and you know it. With Saturn currently in your sign, the Mars-Saturn opposition is especially difficult for you. Try not to focus too much on your symptoms of depression or anxiety. Look instead for the root causes. What are the underlying problems and how can you fix them? If you're a Capricorn, family dynamics are tricky with someone attempting to undermine other relatives. The best way to deal with this is to mind your own business. Don't get involved unless you have to. It's not you, it's the others, of course. People around you sap your energy, dragging you down to their level. Spend time alone if you can to recharge your batteries and recalibrate your joy. Your own company makes you happy, Capricorn. If you're an Aquarian, There's a mystery or intrigue which you're determined to investigate. Beware, however, that you might not like what you find out. Bold moves in your creative life will pay off, so why not pour your emotions out through art? Conflict among your social group or in a club or hobby society is very irritating. Maybe you're keeping the wrong company. Don't hesitate to walk away from people or clubs you've outgrown. You don't have to tolerate the squabbling. And finally, if you're a sweet Pisces, keep a tight watch on your money as someone is being manipulative or dishonest with you financially. The new moon helps you to think on your feet, so you can probably outsmart this person, but don't hesitate to get help if you need it. Career-related regrets figure strongly, but you cannot change the past. Focus instead on the future. You have learned lessons and you won't repeat those mistakes. Set your sights high now and pat yourself on the back. You're on the up and up. Well, there you have it. We are in the season of Gemini, so enjoy it. Get out there, socialize, network with as many people as possible. This is the Astrology Show, and I'm your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox. Thank you for joining me, and enjoy.